Welcome to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. Have a question for the show or need assistance with your retirement plan? Give Philip a call today. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815.
Believe it or not, the need to tackle those spring cleaning projects around the house might actually be part of your DNA. Researchers say as the days start to get longer, our bodies create less melatonin, so that means we have more energy and the desire to shake off everything related to the previous season. So how does that relate to planning for retirement? Well, you're about to find out. We are glad you're here with us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring. And so clearing out the cobwebs, getting rid of all the junk around the house, this might be an annual ritual for a lot of us. But let's talk a little bit about spring cleaning for our finances. What might that look like?
Well, I think that when you think about spring cleaning, you're going through and you're cleaning stuff up. And I think our finances are the same thing. We need to clean some things out and see where we are and make sure that we're on track for where we want to be if we're not retired yet. And if we're retired, I think we have to look back and say, okay, am I where I projected I was going to be from a financial standpoint? And so that my plan is moving forward in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about, when we're thinking about doing this kind of annual check-in on our finances, why is it important that we are doing that kind of checkup or checking in, cleaning things out as it relates to our finances on an annual basis?
Well, just like at the beginning of the year, right? We set goals and we look at things and we have some retrospect of how the last year went. And I think that now in spring, we've got 3 or 4 months under our belt of this year. And so it's time to pause and make sure that we're on track for where we need to be. And spring's a good time to do that because, well, we're getting ready for summer and having fun. And so we want to get this done before that phase starts to kick in.
Yeah. And it just, it's one of those things for me where I sometimes struggle with the motivation to get started. But man, once you go through and you get things freshened up and you get things cleaned out and reorganized and sorted out, it feels really good. It's just a matter of that motivation to get yourself going again. That's what I experience anyway. So, let's talk about some of the ways we can spring clean our retirement finances. What Could go on that list as we think about this?
Well, like I just said, one of the things I think is very important is that we check in on our goals, our financial goals. Where are we in terms of our financial goals? Are we on track? Do we need to tweak them? Do we need to create some new ones, right? Do we have some bucket lists that we've come up with now that maybe we need to create a financial bucket to fund the bucket list to something we want to accomplish over the next year or so? I think another one, and this is hard for some people to deal with, and I get it, switching to online statements and bill pay to help, get rid of the clutter. I mean, I don't know about other folks, but my office is, I hate to even think about spring cleaning because, just paper, it has a life of its own and it just seems to accumulate, right?
Yep.
If you go to online statements and bill pay, hey, you don't have to worry about it. It's taken care of. You don't get more paper in the mail. I know there's some, there's some downsides of that perspective too. You miss it in your email, but it does help with the clutter for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I think this next one's a big one. And I'm working on this actually now as we speak. Let's review our subscriptions and our bills. Those things.
Yep.
They add up really quick. And a lot of times we're not using all the subscriptions that we're subscribed to. And so it's a good time to kind of peruse all your bank statements and your credit card statements to see what monthly charges are getting hit every month for your subscriptions. and see if there's anything you can get rid of. I mean, I've already found two that I've crossed off the list because I just don't use them anymore. And so that's just a good idea to take the time to do that and get rid of stuff just like you get rid of stuff at your house you're not using. If you're not using subscriptions, we need to get rid of them.
Yeah.
And I would say the other thing is if you're looking at, you may be considering investing in some home improvements, things that may lower your cooling cost, that might improve the value of your home. Now's a good time to start thinking about those and start putting a plan together for those as well.
Yeah.
And when it comes to planning, Jen, I developed the core retirement design to help people put together that design and that plan for their retirement. Give us a call, 863-285-3815 to schedule your core retirement analysis, where we'll analyze where you are and make sure that you're on the path to the retirement you dreamed of. Again, that number is 863-285-3815.
You referenced this earlier, Philip. A lot of times at the start of the year, we do spend time talking about setting financial goals for the year, making those financial resolutions. It just feels natural to do that at that time of year, at the start of the year. If we were people who did that, how can we maybe check in on some of our progress? Could this be a good time for a progress report on some of our financial goals?
It's absolutely a great time to take time and revisit your goals and see if we're on track. I mean, whether that's, how's your 401k doing? How's your investment accounts doing? Whether you are getting ready to retire or you've already retired, it's a good time to take a look at those to make sure that we're on track to continue to get to that end goal, whatever it may be. Now, it does help, Jen, if you have an accountability partner, a husband and wife, it makes it kind of easy because, they can keep each other accountable. But if you're single, find somebody that can help keep you accountable for measuring that progress and keeping up with it on a regular basis, because tracking your progress is the key.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get busy and not look at that stuff. And so that's something you want to look at. The other thing that is a good time to take a look at, Jen, is your beneficiaries. Making sure that the beneficiaries on all your accounts, your annuities, your life insurance, your retirement accounts, any account that's a payable on death account, make sure that those beneficiaries are still what you want and how you want them to be left. It's a great time to take a minute and do that.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. And here's the last one that I want to make sure I ask you about, because I know you are very aware, Philip. The other thing that happens during spring cleaning season would be tax season, which you are very aware of.
You had to remind me, didn't you?
Yeah, I had to go there. So, a lot of times we're thinking about getting our finances organized and getting our account information in order while we're getting all those financial documents organized. But let's just talk a little bit about that. Just, not only getting ourselves organized for this year's tax season, but we want to be thinking beyond that as well, right?
That's right. And that's where having that plan helps us get to where we need to be. And that's why when I developed my core retirement design, I really looked at the three key areas that always seem to hit home when I was talking to a client or a prospect or anybody, that these three items kept hitting on the radar. One of them is risk. Making sure that the amount of risk we have truly matches up with where we should be based on our current circumstances. The second area is taxes. Taxes is not a plan today for the rest of this year. It is a plan that we need to make for the next 5, maybe even 10 years to make sure that we're paying the least amount of taxes possible when it comes to our retirement. And then the last thing is, and we talked about this morning already, I think, is making sure that we are, have an income plan in place, have some kind of plan that will get us not just into retirement, but get it through retirement, because the planning is different. Yeah. If you're not retired yet, you have a different plan than the person the you that retires will have a different plan, or at least should have a different plan than what you have right now trying to get ready for retirement.
Yeah.
And that's what I focus on, is that plan to get you ready for retirement.
Yeah. And that is such a good point when you talk about having that written plan. Getting your financial house in order, creating a plan is probably a financial goal for a lot of you, because only 35% of Americans have a thought out and documented financial plan. That means a lot of us don't. And the reality is, people without a plan, Philip, they do tend to feel less confident about their future. That's just something we don't want to overlook.
Yeah, you're right, Jenna. And I know a lot of you out there are worried that you haven't saved enough, or that you won't even be able to retire. I know that most of you don't have a written financial plan based on those statistics, right?
Right.
And so one of the things we want to help you do is put those things together, because a financial plan can help you feel less stressed out about the whole financial thing when it comes to retirement. So you don't have to be one of those folks worried about your money. Will it last? Will it not last? Can I afford to retire? Can I not afford to retire? Look, that's why I developed the Core Retirement Design, to help you design that retirement that you've always dreamed of. Now listen, it's a great opportunity. It's a 30-minute phone consultation with me personally to walk through where you are and to see if you're on the right path. If you are, great. I'll tell you, hey, you're doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing. If you're not, I'm going to give you some input. Hey, look, here's some things you need to be doing. Here's some things that may help you. Hey, we want to make sure that folks in our listening audience are ready for retirement. Give us a call at 863-285-3815 to schedule your core retirement analysis.
That number again, 863-285-3815. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. More insights from Philip are coming up next. Stay with us.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Do you actually read your financial statements, or do they get tossed in a drawer and forgotten about? You could be making an expensive mistake by not taking the time to look at them. If you're paying high fees in your retirement portfolio, it could be costing you tens of thousands of dollars or more over your lifetime. Imagine the difference an extra $100,000 could make in your retirement. Statler Financial Services can help you uncover any hidden fees in your retirement accounts. Call today to schedule a time to talk about your situation. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. When you're close to retirement, every dollar matters. Would you like to know where your money is going? Find out what kind of fees you're really paying. Statler Financial Services can help. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815. Advisory services are offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, and I am Jen Rezac alongside. And Philip, we used to think of retirement as the final stage of life, right? That's kind of how it was viewed for a long time, but it is not the finish line anymore. Really, the way we talk about this, it's the beginning of the next phase of life, and retirements today last so much longer. It actually unfolds in stages. This is something that you start to see. And Philip, sometimes I've heard these described as, when we look at these different stages, you break them down into the go-go years, which are the more active years, the slow-go years a little later on into retirement, and then finally the don't-want-to-go years toward the end of your retirement. Tell me, how do you describe this to your clients? Is that kind of how you explain it?
Well, I do, because you think about it, and those three segments of retirement, I think, really are pretty descriptive, right? As I have been in this business long enough to know that I've seen it, right? I've seen my clients go through these three stages, which is we didn't call this that 30 years ago. We didn't call it these three stages, but It makes total sense, right? So the go-go years, hey, you just retired, you're excited, you've got the bucket list of things that you want to accomplish, and you're going to go, right? And hit those things and get them done. And I tell people, look, that's pretty much going to be about 10 years. 10, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little shorter, but we look at that as being the first 10 years of retirement. You may spend more money because you're going to be going a lot. And so we take those things into consideration. The slow go years are going to be that next, I'm going to say the next 10 years, right? That second 10 years of retirement, because now you've pretty much checked everything off your bucket list. Now I'm going to go see the grandkids. I'm going to go to the special events. Maybe I'm going to take a cruise, once a year, but I'm going to slow down. I'm not going to go as much. I want to be home. And so that's the kind of the slow go years. Now you said the don't want to go years. Right. A lot of times we call them the no-go years, right? We just don't want to go. We just don't want to leave the house. And it's funny. I tell my clients a story. I had a client that I used to always give him a hard time. Why aren't you going? Why aren't you, getting out there? He had a nice portfolio. He had the funds to do all the things he wanted to do. But he was, I think he was probably in his early to mid 80s. And he said, Philip, he says, happy just to sit at home. I got my wood shop. I can go out there and play in the wood shop. But do you know what it takes for me to go? I got this whole pharmaceutical thing I got to pack up. Yep, I got all this other stuff I got to pack up. It's a job, and I don't want to go anymore. And so I think that when I relay that to people, those no-go years, that's it. I'm comfortable in my home. I don't want to go anywhere. So it took me a little while to get that, but it's finally kind of sunk in a little bit.
Right. Finally sunk in with you. I think that's a really good point. And sometimes our preferences and just what we want to do, it's going to change over time. So we need to recognize that it won't always be exactly the way it is at the beginning. But when we're looking back at those go-go years, Philip, let's go back to the beginning here. The first stage of retirement, this is where we're probably wanting to do all those fun things that we've been daydreaming about while we've been at work for decades.
Exactly.
How important, right? How important is it to know how you're going to spend that time and prepare for that financially before you actually retire?
It's important that people understand that they need to know kind of what their plans are, what's on their bucket list, what are they doing that first year or two, and then what's their plans going forward. I don't expect they'd have 10 years really planned out. That would be kind of unrealistic.
Sure.
But hey, the first 2 to 4 years, I would say, okay, look, do you have a big trip planned every year type of thing? What are we looking at? What's our budget going to be for those type of things? Those are what we need to know so that we can put together the right income plan to make sure it matches up with what you're going to be doing in retirement.
And it is a big transition when you think about that, Philip, when you go from working every day to doing whatever you want. I think from a spending habits and spending patterns, what I spend on Saturday versus what I spend during the week. Not that I can't find a way to get on Amazon sometimes during the week and still spend a little, but the going out to eat and the shopping and the doing the fun stuff that costs more money, that all happens on Saturday for me. And when you get to retirement, every day is Saturday. So how do we adjust for that and make sure that we don't go too crazy and start spending everything down too quickly?
Well, you're right. That is a big deal. And I tell people, look, we are here not just as your financial advisor, but really we're your retirement coach, right? We've been through this with a lot of different folks. We understand what has to happen, and we understand what people go through when it comes to retirement. And we try to help them pre-plan, right? What are you going to do? What charities, what's important to you? What do you want to get involved in? Because you don't want to sit at home. You can only fish so many days a week. You can only play golf so many days a week. There's only so much you can do. And so we want to make sure we've got other endeavors to help keep us busy. So every day is not a Saturday, Jen. So we're not out there, spending, because that will be a detriment to your retirement.
Yeah.
Listen, and that's why it really comes down to, that income planning and planning out what you're going to do in your retirement. Look, if you want somebody that's going to be more than just your financial advisor, you want a retirement coach that's going to be there to help you through the whole process, give us a call at 863-285-3815. That number is 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring, and I'm Jen Rezac alongside. Talk a little bit about the slow-go years. What should we expect there? Again, this is after, we're into retirement for a little bit. Maybe we've slowed down a little bit on the travel and some of the big bucket list items. What's going on during what you would call or describe as the slow-go years?
So the slow-go years are just like they say, we're going to slow down some. We may not be going all the time. I know some retirees, as soon as they retire, they're gone every month. They've got a trip or something. So the slow-go years, we're going to slow down a little bit. Maybe twice a year we take a decent-sized trip. We definitely go see the grandkids and family and that type of thing. But we're not going. And here in Florida, it may be that I'm gone actually 3 months out of the year, right? Because it's summertime here. They're going to go up where it's cooler and then come back down. So that plays into it as well as what we're looking at too, as far as slowing down.
Yeah, that's a good thing to think about. Is this the second stage where maybe healthcare costs and health costs are a little bit more of a concern? And what do we need to know there as far as preparing for some of those healthcare costs down the road?
Well, I think definitely that second phase, that slow go years, we definitely see more healthcare issues start to develop. Because now we're 75 to 85 probably, maybe even later 70s. And so it does. Our health obviously starts to become an issue. And so we know that we've got to plan for those additional health care costs as well when we start looking at our income planning.
Philip, talk a little bit about with long-term care and that type of thing. You might not actually need that in the second stage of retirement, but is now a good time if you're in those kind of slow-go years? Or when is a good time to start planning ahead for long-term care, I guess I should ask?
Well, I don't think there's a bad time to start, other than you're knocking on the door to get in. That's not a good time to start, right? We need to start ahead of time. I would encourage people to start looking, even maybe while they're still working, right? Investigate long-term care insurance. What does that cost? What is it? How is it going to help you? Is it something you need? What's your family history look like? There's multiple ways to plan for long-term care issues. And let's make certain that we understand that long-term care is different than healthcare, right? We're all going to get older. We're all going to have more health issues as we get older. Some of us may never need long-term care. Long-term care is where we have to go into assisted living because we need help, or we end up in a nursing home. And so I tell my clients, look, there are ways out there to do some planning. They may not be fun. They may not be cheap, but there's always a way to do some planning as long as we're not knocking on the door. And so I think that's what we need to stay cognizant of and make sure that we know in our heads and on paper, if we need long-term care, what is our plan of action?
So let's talk a little bit about that, Philip, as far as your process for helping people analyze not only their income needs, but also some of the solutions, some of the strategies they might think about for things like healthcare costs and long-term care down the road. Talk a little bit about your process for bringing all of this together.
Well, it's a discussion that it's really a discussion through our review process. And when we review, sit down with folks and go through our annual and semi-annual review process, we start talking about, okay, if we need long-term care, what do you want to, first, what do they want to have happen? What does that look like for them? Nobody wants it, right? And then we start talking about what those alternatives are, what those alternatives cost, and what's the best way to proceed. And we talk about the different ways that are out there. And there's insurance with a lot of time it's too expensive and too late. There's annuities, there's life insurance contracts that have different riders that make it somewhat flexible to be able to use those as long-term care alternatives. And there's obviously Medicaid planning in that area. So there's avenues out there. You just have to have a coach that can coach you through them. That's the bottom line. And that's what we want to be here at Statler Financial is we want to be your retirement coach. That's why we developed the core retirement design to help you design the retirement and then coach you through the whole process. Give us a call, 863-285-3815. I'd love to spend 30 minutes on the phone with you to make sure you're going the right direction for the retirement you always dreamed of. That number again is 863-285-3815. Don't procrastinate because your retirement is at hand. That number one more time is 863-285-3815.
Retirement might be the finish line for one phase of life, but it's the starting line of another. And if you want to make sure you leave enough in the tank to make it all the way through to the end, stay with us as we keep talking about the different stages of your retirement and some of the strategies to help you make sure your income will last. We'll be back in just a moment.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
It's nice when you get everything on your list in one place, isn't it? Philip Statler at Statler Financial Services agrees. That's why he offers comprehensive retirement planning all under one roof. You shouldn't have to go one place for information about tax planning, another for estate planning, and another for retirement income planning. That's why Statler Financial Services was started. Philip wanted to build a company that could help families with all aspects of their retirement. Statler Financial is more than just convenient, they're knowledgeable and experienced. To set up a meeting with Philip Statler and his team to talk about your retirement plan, all of it, call 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, one stop for a wealth of retirement solutions. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
I want to help you understand some things. Number one, timing of your RMD, because they could potentially push you into a higher tax bracket. Imagine how fast your savings could shrink if you rack up penalties along with taking regular withdrawals and paying taxes.
Welcome back to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler and co-host Jen Rezac.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, and I am Jen Rezac alongside. And Philip, we've been talking today about the different stages of retirement. It's just important for people to recognize that retirement, it just does not look the same way that it did before. They can last 2 or 3 decades, so it helps to break it down into stages when you're planning. And we have called these the go-go years, those early active years of retirement, the slow go years where you're still in good shape, you're still active, but maybe not living to the pace that you were when you first retired. And then for this last phase, it's really important to plan ahead because you need to ensure your money will last through your entire retirement. And this is the no-go or the don't want to go type of years toward the end. Tell me what's happening at this point in your retirement.
In those no-go years, you've done the things you want to do. You've checked off the buckets. And it's like I said earlier, it's one of those things that, hey, I have lived my life. I've done the things I want to do. Now it's more of a hassle for me to pack up and go visit than it is for me to stay home in more ways than one. And I've starting to find this out a little bit myself, right? So it's not the packing that gets me, it's the schedule change, right? Because your whole schedule changes when you travel. And so I think that's been a big deal is that people don't do as much. So they don't spend as much because they're not going on trips. Now, healthcare is still a big issue because now more than in the slow go years, health becomes more of an issue. So if in those slow go years, we were really pretty healthy, then maybe in those no-go years, our health starts to dwindle some. And so that may be that our healthcare spending ends up going up a little bit in those no-go years. Typically, what we see is that, those no-go years, people are definitely slowing down. They're staying home more. And there's a possibility that long-term care becomes something we have to talk about. Maybe we can't take care of ourselves at home anymore. We need to look at long-term care. So those are all things that can pop up in those no-go years.
And because decisions in retirement don't just affect you and your spouse, when we're talking about getting into those later years, you're talking about things like legacy. Talk about the kind of family discussions should be happening about things like long-term care and end-of-life decisions. I know those things, Philip, aren't the most fun to talk about, but it seems really important to make sure we're not overlooking some of those conversations.
It is very important, Jen, and you're right. It is a hard conversation to have because I sit down with folks and their first things come out of their mouth is, I don't want to go to a nursing home.
Right.
And I understand. I really do. But if you've never walked through some of those shoes of trying to take care of somebody at home, it is not an easy task.
Right.
And now we're getting kind of outside the financial realm, right? We're looking at somebody's personal life and the decisions they need to make, right? Nobody wants to go into a nursing home, but we have to look at it. And I say this from my heart because I've walked through it 3 times, right? With 3 different family members myself, not including clients. Mm-hmm. It's not an easy decision, but you have to think about not just the individual, but you got to think of the spouse and other family members.
Yep.
And so it's a discussion that needs to be had, and it needs to be had from an unselfish standpoint, right? Because we, even as adult children, say, well, I don't want to put my parents in a assisted living. I don't want to put my parents in a nursing home. I understand. Right. But if your spouse, your mom who's taking care of your dad, is having issues, is she actually helping or hurting the situation? There's a lot of things you have to walk through. And that's why really we call ourselves retirement coaches, because we deal with more than just the financial aspect when it comes to these type of things, Jen.
Yeah, and that's such a good point. And there are so many difficult decisions. I feel like everybody, Philip, of course, they always want to do right by their family and do what makes the most sense. But sometimes it's hard to know what that is. So that's why it's important to get that guidance. The other thing that is such a big unknown, Philip, we don't know how long we'll actually live in retirement. We don't know if this will be something where you need long-term care for a very long time, or you'll need some sort of help at home or assisted living. I mean, we just don't know those things. So how can we help ensure our money will last, even if we do end up living a very long time?
You're right, Jen. You don't. And so that's where income planning comes into play. Having that written retirement income plan in place allows you to see on paper from a conservative approach, at least we use a very conservative approach, that the money you have based on your spending now with some bumps for inflation over your lifetime is going to last you past age 100. I mean, mathematically, there it is. Now, will it always work? Not necessarily, right? Because we don't know what inflation will be. I mean, who expected inflation to be over 9%?
Oh gosh, right.
When we've run 10 years at less than 2.5. So yeah, is it perfect? No. But that most likely that you've got the money to live to 100. And with some cushion left at the end, right? We don't run it out. So, hey, look, if you live past 100, you're just out of luck.
You're done.
No,
right?
Yeah, we're going to make sure there's a lump sum there at age 100 for your beneficiaries, and that also takes into consideration if we have to spend more money in certain years. If we've got it at the end of age 100, we know we've got it to spend throughout our lifetime. So that's the deal, and it really comes down to, Jen, And I feel like a broken record sometimes, right? It comes down to putting together that plan, the thing that nobody likes to sit down and do. Having that written retirement income plan allows you that certainty of knowing that your money is going to last as long as you do. That's the key. Folks, don't go into retirement without that written retirement income plan. Give us a call right now to schedule your core retirement design phone consultation. That's 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring. I am Jen Rezac alongside that number again, 863-285-3815. Philip, as we talk a little bit about these different stages of retirement, recognizing just how long retirement could potentially last in some cases, what do you think? Talk about how this helps people understand the need for that comprehensive plan for their own retirement future.
I hope it helps them understand. It's the glue that glues everything together. If you haven't planned, then how do you know what's going to happen? Right? We don't. I always watch movies. I watched a movie that day. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I mean, that's an old adage that we hear all the time. And it can't be so much more true than when we're talking about retirement planning and making sure that we've got that income plan in place, Jen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you can't, well, let's talk about a couple of things. One, talk about when you're helping people with this plan, how we build that budget designed to have the freedom for us to spend the money we want to now in those early years where we're active. And then, but still be confident enough that there will be money left over for expenses, including things like healthcare and long-term care later on. I mean, that's what I think people are really interested in.
You had to do that, didn't you? You had to go there.
I had to bring that word up.
That B word.
I did.
That's right. It's nobody's favorite word, right? So it's actually being the sounding board and helping people realize what expenses they're going to have in retirement. Understanding that they're still going to do things in retirement. It's not like they're going to sit at home and twiddle their thumbs and not spend money. And so it's really a process of reminding them of what are they going to be spending money on in retirement? How many trips? How many cruises are they going to take? What kinds of things are they going to want to do? Where do their grandkids live and what's it going to take to go visit them? Those are the questions, and that's what it takes to put together that budget that they're going to need in terms of spending money. I mean, it's easy to say, well, I make this now, so we'll just use half of it. Well, is that really the right number?
Right.
We don't know until we sit down and put pencil to paper and determine what that budget really looks like. And so we help people walk through that process of developing, reminding them about the different expenses that they may have that they forget about because they may only pay them once a year. Those are things that we have to do when we're starting to try to build that income plan.
And finally, as we talk about this, and you talk about the importance of having that income plan, you can't create a plan and then send somebody into retirement for 30 years, just wish them the best and send them on their way and just hope it all works out, right? You're going to still work with them to make adjustments once they've actually gotten into retirement. How often do you sit down with clients and revisit those plans and then make adjustments where needed when you have a year where all of a sudden inflation's a big deal and it hadn't been for years, that type of thing?
Good question, Jen. So typically we're going to meet with our clients at a minimum once a year. Sometimes because of circumstances, we meet 2 or 3 times. It just depends on the client and what their needs are. But we're going to sit down with our clients at least once a year to make sure that we are on track and that we don't need to course correct because of what's going on in the economy or the markets or healthcare. I mean, we don't ever know when we sit down with somebody and check in what may be going on. And so they may be having a health issue that we've got to help them walk through. Those are the things that we're here to help coach them through. And that's why we want to see them at least once a year if not 2 or 3 times a year, to make sure that we are on the right path to the retirement they always dreamed of. Folks, in all of this that we talk about is exactly why we created the core retirement design. We want to be able to help people through the retirement process. So our core retirement design helps you look at where you are today from a risk perspective, from an income perspective, and make sure that your portfolio is established with your risk optimization in mind. Give us a call now at 863-285-3815 to walk through our core retirement design. That's 863-285-3815. Don't procrastinate. It's easy to put it off until it's too late. But you know what? It's never too late to get started on your retirement plan. Give us a call today, 863-285-3815. Love to speak with you about your retirement plan.
There are so many big decisions you have to weigh as you head into retirement. Coming up in our retirement yay or nay segment, the pros and cons of retiring without leaving an inheritance. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
Do you have a retirement plan but would like a second opinion? Call Philip Statler today, 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. Do you actually read your financial statements, or do they get tossed in a drawer and forgotten about? You could be making an expensive mistake by not taking the time to look at them. If you're paying high fees in your retirement portfolio, it could be costing you tens of thousands of dollars or more over your lifetime. Imagine the difference an extra $100,000 could make in your retirement. Statler Financial Services can help you uncover any hidden fees in your retirement accounts. Call today to schedule a time to talk about your situation. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. When you're close to retirement, every dollar matters. Would you like to know where your money is going? Find out what kind of fees you're really paying. Statler Financial Services can help. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here alongside Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, and there are so many big decisions that you have to weigh as you head into retirement. So what we like to do here on the show, take one of those big decisions, really dive into the pros and cons. We call this retirement yay or nay, and I think we'll have some fun with this week's topic, Philip. It is leaving an inheritance or not. To leave or not to leave an inheritance.
There you go.
Yeah. So
depends on if you're giving or getting, probably.
I know. I think so too. So here's some research that I did. I thought this was kind of interesting. Do you know who Daniel Craig is, the actor? Please say yes. He played James Bond.
Okay, yes. Okay, fine.
Okay.
Yeah. You got to tell me what they did.
I know. Quite distasteful. You have to have his accent. Think about his lovely Scottish accent when you think. Quite distasteful is how he describes the idea of leaving his children an inheritance. There's a bunch of celebrities who've come out and publicly said they are not going to do this. They're going to. They're not going to leave money to their kids. They're going to give it to charity. Daniel Craig's quote is, "Isn't there an old adage that if you die a rich person, you failed?" And he says he plans to get rid of it or give it away. Gene Simmons of Kiss, he's not going to leave his kids penniless, but he doesn't want them to become rich off of his money. And Warren Buffett says relatively little will go to his 3 kids. He's going to leave $2.1 billion in stock to their philanthropic organizations, but the bulk of his fortune will go to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So the Gateses are going to do all right off of Warren Buffett.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, man, I tell you. So I find one thing a little interesting there, right?
Sure.
So, especially Warren Buffett's, right? He's going to leave $2.1 billion in stock to each of their philanthropic
so the kids,
right?
I mean, they're all doing all right.
They're going to run it, right? And I'm sure they'll get paid for running their own organization. So it's not like they're going to starve to death, right? It's it's one of those things. But you got different people have different opinions on what they want to do, what they want to leave to their kids or their grandkids, right? So It's obviously a personal choice as to what they do, but it is interesting to see wealthy people and their take on leaving inheritance to their kids.
Yeah. One of my favorite ones, real quickly before we move on into the pros and cons, Gordon Ramsay, the chef. He does not let his kids ride in first class when they travel. They have to sit and coach because he's like, they haven't worked hard enough to earn this. They're not. And I think it's Shaq who reminds his kids, we're not rich. I'm rich. Not you guys. So those are pretty good. Just keep everybody grounded, just keeping it real. So, but you're right. There's no wrong answers here. This is, a matter of personal preference and personal beliefs, but just kind of interesting to see some of these trends with some of these ultra wealthy people and celebrities and what they're planning to do with their money. Okay, so let's get into the yays and nays of leaving an inheritance. So, if you do want to leave an inheritance to your heirs, let's talk about some of the things that you ought to be thinking about, Philip. What are some of the boxes that we want to check if we're on the yay side of this?
There's quite a few that I think people need to really and truly consider before they start giving away, all their money.
And one thing we should say really quickly also, you are not an estate planning attorney. And this is not legal advice. We're not doing that right now. I just want to
That's right.
be following the rules and whatnot. Okay. Now go.
Yeah. Now I can go. Huh?
Now you
okay. So first thing is you need to think about yourself. You need to think about your income needs.
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to need in income for the rest of my life? And folks, listen, if you're 65, very well could be a long life ahead for you. And so let's don't get short-sighted and start giving away too much too soon, not knowing, that the end could be 20 years down the road still. And so that's one thing I think we need to make sure that we ascertain what that looks like before we start making gifts to our kids and grandkids. Second is we need to think about taxes and inflation.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those things are going to go up. Inflation may be up and down. Taxes, I don't see any way that they are not going to continue to rise over the next 20 years.
Yep.
Given interest rates going up, given our debt, I mean, there's just so much headwind there that I don't see anything that's going to stop that. You need to look at healthcare costs for yourself, because that, as a retired individual, will end up taking a huge chunk of your income. And so you want to make sure that you're going to have enough there to not just cover your health care, but what about if we have an unexpected illness? Not just for you, but I know a lot of times, hey, look, if one of your children has something, unexpected illness, well, you're going to want to help that person. So we don't want to just give up too soon on our own account.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the tax implications that we're leaving behind. And then I think that the other thing we need to make sure we're looking at is, what about a legacy?
Mm-hmm.
Who do you want to leave it to? What is your plan for that legacy? Right? Are we just going to give away the quote, the exclusion? Are we buying life insurance? Are we putting money into a trust? What are we doing? What's the plan?
Mm-hmm.
Let's don't just, willy-nilly and say, okay, I'm going to leave all my money to my kids. And do without, which I see that, and that's not a good thing, right? We want to take care of ourselves, and if there's anything left, the kids get it. But let's don't go through retirement without, because we want to make sure the kids get it. And when it comes to legacy planning, there's several different avenues out there, right? Gifting on an annual basis, the trust, like I said, to avoid probate, retirement accounts. With Secure Act, it changed some stuff.
Yep.
And so, there may be some better ways than just leaving your IRA to somebody by using some life insurance to make sure that they get tax-free money, because the retirement account, they're going to have to take it out in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And let's face it, when you die, they're probably going to be in their higher tax, higher years of earnings. So they're going to be in a higher tax bracket than you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, couple good things to keep in mind there. A lot that we want to be mindful of, a lot that we need to be considering here. And Philip, let's just talk real quickly before we move on to the other side here, before we move on to the nays and that side of the debate here. Talk a little bit about your process for helping people discuss all of these things, not only what's going on with our ideas for inheritance goals, but some of those other areas of preparing for retirement as well.
Well, I think a lot of this lends itself to the income planning process we go through because that's the key, right? Because then you can see where your income is going to be. How much am I going to have left at age 100? Mm-hmm. What happens if I do some gifting now? We can throw that into the mix and say, okay, look, I'm going to give, $50,000 away to all my grandkids. And so what does that look like? How much is that going to deplete your assets? And so that's all part of our core retirement design. Give us a call, 863-285-3815 to schedule that 30-minute no obligation phone consultation. 863-285-3815.
So, Philip, as we said earlier, and it's good to know all the different options here, there are no wrong answers here, right? Whether or not you plan to leave an inheritance to your loved ones, that is entirely up to you. No wrong answers. But whatever your wishes are, having a plan in place is important because those things will not happen without proper documentation, proper plans in place. So it's really important that we have these conversations, Philip. Just walk us through some of the things that we need to think about as we're approaching retirement, especially in regards to our legacy plan and other areas of preparing for retirement.
Well, if we want to do legacy planning, there's a lot of different areas that we can focus on, different ways of funding it, right? And so that's where I think you need to work with somebody that has all those different options available. What if, I want to support charities and through a donor advised fund? How can I do that? We can help you with that. What if I want to leave, a big chunk of money to my kids? How can I do that? And we can help you devise that plan. That's all part of the process of working with somebody that has the ability to really, all the tools that are out there, have access to them. Look, if you're not sure whether you're a yay or a nay when it comes to leaving inheritance, you don't have to decide now, but you need to decide soon. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. Let us help walk you through that process to help you decide which side of the coin you're on there. That number is 863-285-3815. Give us a call today. Let us help you solve the yay or nay issue when it comes to inheritance. 863-285-3815.
Thanks for joining us today. This has been the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. That's all the time we have for this week. Be sure to tune in again next week for more insights from Philip, and we'll talk to you then.
Information provided during the Statler Financial Radio Show is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No strategy is guaranteed to be successful.
This radio show is a paid placement.